Hello. It's story time, alright? So gather round. Yeah, that's right. Today I'll be reading my awful fan fiction I wrote, True Love Waits, which is a Thom Yorke times Shrek, Rick and Morty, alternate universe, extravaganza. How it came about was a Britpop band, because it was a blur. Haha. Because someone tweeted, a mutual mind was like doing these, fun Twitter mutual activities, like, who would I get in a fight with? Who would say this thing, It somehow got on the topic of fan fictions, and someone tweeted a link to a Reddit post that was like, Ed Times Reader, fan fiction. And when you open the link, it was just like a dumb little joke. Like, the fan fiction wasn't there. So I was all like, what if I wrote an awful fan fiction? What if I wrote a Shrek times Thom Yorke fan fiction? And that's what I did. So I started writing that. But I just wasn't feeling that one. So I was like, it needs something. It needs Rick and Morty. Like how we all think about life. And so I added Rick and Morty to it, and this awful creation came about. Shout out to all my Twitter mutuals for motivating me to do this still. And for calling it well written. Like, thank you. Like, yeah, it's awful, but thanks for telling me it's well written. I appreciate it. Also, shout out to a homie of mine, Andrew. They helped me edit some paragraphs to make it, better. So shout out to them. And shout out to therapists, because I'm in therapy, because writing this, I do need help, but I'm getting it, not because of this. I'm just shout out to therapists, Okay, are you ready? Ooh, no. Okay, here we go. True Love Waits, a Shrek times Thom Yorke, Rick and Morty, alternate universe, extravaganza. Warning, slight, NSFW. By Flo. Yours truly, also known as DeVito's Daddy 69 on Twitter. Shrek was once again preparing a lonesome dinner for one. He didn't mind being alone all the time, but he couldn't help but wonder what human interaction was like. He only interacted with people when they got too close to his swamp, and he screamed at them. Tonight was different, though. Shrek could sense an unfamiliar presence in the swamp. Only this time, this energy didn't alarm him. Rather, it excited him. It felt as if a horny goblin was outside his swamp. He felt rather drawn to such a mysterious and erotic energy. Maybe they'd like some eyeballs, Shrek said in his luscious ogre accent to himself as he sank down into his chair. He knew he shouldn't get his hopes up at this potential excitement, so he decided to let his mind wander as he took a bite of eyeballs. He was thinking about how he could really go for a nice mud bath in his swamp and pound off. A horny, feral, British goblin-looking fruity man stood at the door with a guitar case and luggage. For Christ's sakes, it's probably vacant, he said to himself. That man was none other than Radiohead's Thom Yorke, about to bestow his presence in Shrek's beloved swamp. He was lost after the rest of the band kicked him off the tour bus for moaning about the government for too long. Of course, the boys were joking. A rather elaborate joke to the point where they kicked him off. But Thom didn't pick up on the joke, so he just started walking and wandering so far that he couldn't hear the other fellow fruity boys pleading for him to come back. He'd been walking for hours. He was so tired and lost that he didn't care who or where the help was. He knocked again. "Hello, anyone there?" Thom said in his sexy voice. He started to hear grunting and footsteps. The footsteps got closer and louder. Shrek then answered the door. He was so surprised to see that the singer of his favorite song, Creep, was at the door. It was his anthem. Shrek felt every word of that song. He masturbated to Radiohead quite frequently while he took those long swamp baths. "Thom Yorke of Radiohead?" Shrek asked in a thick Scottish accent to Thom Yorke of Radiohead. "Oh yeah, that's me." Usually, Shrek would scream at uninvited guests to leave, but Shrek was so enamored by the sheer erotic energy and let him in with no fuss. "Welcome to my swamp," Shrek remarked excitedly. "I'm Shrek, and this is my swamp." Thom," he said after putting out his hand for Shrek to shake. They had just shared their first of many, but limited, physical touches. "I'm sorry to intrude, but I'm lost and don't know where to go. Is there a telephone around here? He blinked on Shrek's name. "Shrek, was it?" Shrek felt kind of hurt that Thom instantly forgot his name, but he was tired and lost after all, so Shrek forgave him. "Telephone? What's that?" a puzzled Shrek asked. "You've never heard of a telephone before." Thom paused. How far did I wander off to? "Don't worry," Shrek said as he put his hand on Thom's shoulders. "You're in good hands. Would you like an eyeball?" he politely offered Thom. He declined Shrek's offer. Meanwhile, in Rick's garage. Geez, Rick, I don't know what I did on planet 669 to change this reality," Morty nervously shouted at his grandpa Rick. "Of course you don't know, you stupid shit. Now I once again have to fix the problem you somehow caused." Rick burped. "Geez, Rick, I'm sorry. Do you know how much of a stupid little shit you have to be to fuck up a reality so bad to where Radiohead never made the bins because Thom Yorke fell in love with the Shrek?" "No, I don't. I'm sorry, Rick. We're not even in the reality where Pablo Honey never happened. This puts us in a real danger. God, Morty, you're so stupid," Rick said to his grandson as he tightened a screw on a gadget to fix this alternate reality. Rick was so quick to fix the reality because he knew that if Radiohead never released the bins, then they would never release OK Computer, and then Rick and Morty would never exist. Rick knew Radiohead's discography was the source of their whole entire existence, and anything that fucked that up would result in a domino effect to the point where everything around them would disappear. So Rick had to work fast before they vanished. "What were you even doing on planet 669? God, Morty, it was as if you knew." Rick looked up and burped. "How to disappear completely?" Rick devilishly smiled. "Now hand me the T-37 liquid." Morty handed him the strange liquid as Rick worked on his gadget. Gotta take a drink of my coffee. Now, the Rick voice, I'm telling you. Also, yeah, I can't burp on demand. All right. Back at the swamp. "So then I said, I'm a fruit. I'm not a vegetable," Laughter erupted at the table. Thom had just finished telling Shrek a funny story that happened on the Pablo Honey tour. "Aye, Thom, I'm sorry all I had to offer you was mushrooms. I wish I could have made you a better dinner." "Oh, it's all right, Shrek. I'm just glad you're not an axe murderer and that I'm safe for the night. Thanks again for offering me a place to stay." "Anything for you, a sexy rock star." Thom looked at Shrek as Shrek awkwardly smiled at him. The tension between them was just getting started. Thom looked down at his bowl of mushroom soup. "I'm not sexy," he frowned. "I'm just weird looking, you know. In fact, you're probably just saying this because I'm a famous rock star." Thom got defensive toward Shrek. Fame was starting to get to him. The successive creep was starting to get to all of them. That's why Thom got kicked out of the tour bus in the first place. Everyone was fed up with each other. Shrek didn't know what to say at Thom's insecurity. He slammed his hands down on the table. "No, I'm not just saying that. You're attractive, okay?" Shrek screamed as he walked over to Thom. "You're smart and charming, and I'm the gross one." "Oh, Shrek, don't put yourself down like that." "No, I like being gross. I'm just not charming or talented or..." Shrek stopped himself as Thom took Shrek's hand. They stared into each other's eyes until Shrek leaned down for a kiss. Thom and Shrek shared a passionate embrace for each other's budding relationship. In the garage, Morty screamed, "Ah! What's happening? Where is my arm? Rick!" Rick explained to him the situation. "Morty, it's like Back to the Future, you see. The more Shrek and Thom fall for each other, the more we're in danger of all the realities collapsing. We're doing a Back to the Future thing this episode, biatch!" Rick said excitedly as Morty screamed in pain. Shrek's swamp. Thom and Shrek started making out and things were getting intense. Shrek slammed Thom up against the wall of the swamp. Thom gasped. "Shrek, love, are you sure you want to take me?" Thom asked as he stared lovingly into Shrek's eyes. Shrek couldn't resist Thom and the soft look on his face and responded to the question. "I know what I want. I'm an ogre, for crying out loud. I want to have you." Shrek leaned in for another kiss as Thom's luscious lips felt Shrek's disgusting ogre mouth. Thom liked that sort of thing, though, so he didn't mind. After all, he was a creep, a weirdo. He didn't know what the hell he was doing here, but he felt that in his heart, it was destiny. As Thom was undoing Shrek's crusty pants, a green portal appeared in their swamp. "Who the bloody hell are you?" Thom asked as he was leaning on Shrek's irresistible figure. "I'm Rick, and this is my idiot grandson, Morty." "I love the bins, Mr. Thom, Mr. Yorke, sir," a half-disappeared Morty said. "Jesus Christ, Morty, he hasn't even written that yet." What haven't I written yet?" "For the love of mud, can someone please tell me what's going on? And what are you doing in my swamp?" Shrek asked in a stern tone. "You see, my idiot grandson here got us into this whole Back to the Future situation by visiting a forbidden planet that I strictly told him to not go to under any circumstances. Yet he visited anyway to prove a stupid point. Did you learn your lesson, Morty? That I'm always going to be better than you? Are you happy now?" Morty shrieked. "Jeez, fuck you, Rick. I'm halfway vanished here. You still don't give a shit. Fuck you!" Thom and Shrek were puzzled with confusion. and lust for each other. Jesus Christ, you need therapy, you're mad, Thom said at Rick. Yeah, it's kind of my thing to be a dick, and for your information, Thom Yorke, we do go to therapy. Oh yeah, we go. You turned yourself into a pickle once to avoid going to a session, half of Morty shrieked at Rick. For fuck's sake, that was one time. We're getting off topic. Thom, you're coming with me, Rick said as he pulled Thom away from his green lover. But I don't want to go with you. I want to stay here for the night with Shrek. Yeah, let me have him. Everyone stared at Shrek. Rick and half Morty stared with judgment and concern in their eyes, whereas Thom was flustered. He started blushing. Shrek laughed nervously. I mean, let him stay here for the night. No way, Rick said as he pulled on Thom's arm. Hey, wait a bloody minute there. You still haven't told us why you're here. Thom backed away from Rick. Yeah, all you said was something about a Back to the Future situation, whatever that means. Shrek came to Thom's defense. Rick sighed. Fine, I'll give you a fucking explanation, Jesus Christ. Rick burped and let out a deep sigh. You see, the Thom Yorke of Radiohead, my idiot grandson Morty over here screwed up our life source so bad on the Forbidden Planet that he caused us to be in a reality where you two fall in love. But that never should have happened, because if you don't write more albums like in the normal reality we live on, then our show will never exist and this fanfic will never be written. It's all a domino effect, Rick explained as he was fidgeting with his gadget. Rick sure was a neurodivergent king. Geez, Rick, what was with all the fourth wall breaking? Half Morty asked. What? Too much? Yeah, you're right. Should have stopped at the Back to the Future episode 1. Rick for once agreed with his grandson. So wait, you're telling me that if I were to stay here and make love to this Shreksy freak, that you two would no longer exist? Thom said as Shrek added, and the growth of our love depends on your existence? Hence the Back to the Future type thing, Thom asked. See? Was that so hard to understand? God, the British are so exhausting. Hey, I'm an ogre. I'm not British. Shrek got defensive, but Rick didn't care. Sorry, babe. I can't be an ogre and a Brit. I have to choose a struggle, you know? Shrek said at Thom as their foreheads touched. Half Morty turned into 1/4 Morty, and Rick's hands started to disappear. Come on, stop being so horny for each other and follow me, an annoyed Rick exclaimed as he pulled Thom in the green portal. Wait! Thom resisted and walked up to Shrek and gave him the best kiss both had ever had and will ever have. I'll never forget you, Shrek. And I'll never forget you, Thom. I'm so glad you came to my swamp, Shrek said as he gently kissed Thom one last time. 1/4 Morty was now 0.69625 Morty, and Thom was soon pulled into the portal. Shrek was alone again and let out a sniff. Rick and 0.69625 Morty took Thom to Planet 6X9, also known as the Forbidden Planet. Rick placed Thom on the portal of all portals so that everything would be in its right place. Thom didn't really have time to make a decision for himself, but both he and Shrek knew he did the right thing. He didn't want to be the reason Rick and Morty never was. Morty started to become full again, and Rick's hand came back as he erased Thom's memory of the whole event. Before he knew it, he found himself back on the tour bus with the rest of Radiohead, but couldn't help feel like he forgot something. Rick grunted as he opened a portal back to the regular reality that Rick and Morty originally were. Huh, a celebrity mind blower. That's pretty cool, huh, Morty? Geez, Rick, I don't know. They seem to really be in love. Who cares if they were in love? You know what, Morty? When we get home, we're doing another mind blower episode, Rick said as he and his grandson walked into the portal. They returned to Rick's garage, and everything in Rick and Morty's universe was back to normal. 10 years later, at the swamp, Fiona had just topped Shrek as Shrek looked lovingly into his wife's eyes. He never thought he'd love again after Thom was taken away from him so abruptly. He thought he'd never have what he and Thom almost had, until he saved Fiona. He bettered himself. He was happy with how things turned out, although he always wondered what could have been. He was still happy and content as Fiona put on a strap to peg him. Life was good for Shrek. Later on in Thom's British old man, sad, depressed universe, Thom sat at his piano. Ever since the events of the whole Rick and Morty fun time Shreksy fun had happened, that he didn't remember at all, he couldn't help that a piece of him was missing. Of course, this just fueled his inspiration for all of his best work, but he couldn't help but think sometimes if he forgot something in the 90s. He wondered if he had forgotten how fruity he was, but then realized he remembered that part, and it wasn't that. He just knew he'd never fully figure it out. Thom banged out a few piano chords as a song full of longing and yearning about being loved just came to him. Little did he know that it came from his long-forgotten night of passion with Shrek. True Love Waits, he titled the song he had just written. Okay, that was the fan fiction. Thanks for joining me on this awful adventure. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. No, I never post anything on here. Just follow my Twitter, I guess. I don't know.